Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Breaking news, a warrant has just been issued for Vicki White, and we've just found out she's a widow with no children. So I think the timing of her retirement is huge. That broke a pattern of 2 decades with the correctional department, and if she was a model worker, maybe it was kind of boring, maybe it wasn't very exciting. And now that she's retiring, maybe she wanted some kind of distinctive, interesting, exciting change in her life. Like I said, if there's no real glue holding her to other people, that would make her particularly susceptible to some sort of romantic entanglement. If that's what happened, we may be dealing with a Bonnie and Clyde type situation. Before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So this is obviously a developing situation. More information is coming to light all the time. What we've just learned is that Vicki White is a widow with no children, and her mother and 2 brothers live in Lauderdale County. And so one wonders what her relationship is with her mother and also with her brothers. According to the Daily Mail, Vicki also recently sold her house. I think that is quite a big one. Quote, Vicki's mother, Pat Davis, says her daughter had been living with her for 5 weeks after she sold her house. She'd been in shock ever since she got wind of her disappearance. Now, that's the other thing. She'd been living with her mother for 5 weeks. What do you think that must feel like for a 56-year-old who's about to retire? Does she want to go home and live with her mother for the rest of her life, or does she want to have some other kind of life, right? And then the other thing that's quite interesting is Vicki never mentioned anything to her mom about bad boy Casey, right? And that could mean something, or it means nothing. Bear in mind, Casey is quite a high-profile prisoner. He's got quite a big rap sheet, serving 75 years and so on and so on. You would have thought that she would have mentioned him. And so the other thing is that's quite interesting is she never really talked to her mother about work or retirement either. And so, her mother saying that she doesn't believe Vicki would willingly help an inmate, that she never even mentioned. I'm not sure if I would put too much substance into that. But that's assuming Vicki and her mother were closer than Vicki and Casey. Were they? Do you think they were? Now, according to what the sheriff told CNN quite recently, quote, he was in jail for capital murder and he had nothing to lose. And that's according to the sheriff. Now, one's also got to wonder, did she feel the same way, that she had nothing to lose either? She didn't have really much of a life. Her life had just been with the correctional department and she wanted something more, right? And the sheriff went on to say, quote, whether she assisted him or not, that's Casey White, we don't know. And we won't address that until we have absolute proof that that's what happened. We are assuming at this point that she was taken against her will, unless we can absolutely prove otherwise. But regardless, even if she did assist him, we think she's in danger. And that's the end of the quote. Now, I think what's also interesting is in 2020, about 2 years ago, Casey White was caught trying to escape while taking a hostage. Is this the same, or is this different, or is it the same and different? One more thing to add is the fact that both these individuals share the same last name. Is that a small thing? Is that a small detail? Is it incidental, or is it relevant? Is it significant? If it is significant, how significant is it? Did this form a premise? Did the fact that they shared the same last name, did it form a premise in both their minds for afterthought, for imaginings, for ruminations? Did they sort of dwell on the idea? Did they think about one another separately, kind of as potentially a couple or potentially something, right? Didn't other prisoners repeatedly ask each of them if they were related? And wouldn't that, repeated asking, repeated prodding have caused thoughts and feelings to settle on one another more often than not, right? wouldn't that repeated asking and prodding, wouldn't it cause them to, not only him but her as well, to almost, I'm not saying necessarily fantasize, but flirt with the idea that there might be some connection, right, between the two of them. And maybe he manipulated her in some way, but maybe she, the thought was offered to her, the thought was presented to her repeatedly, and then perhaps she started to entertain that thought. Perhaps she nourished that with whatever, fantasies, ideas, imaginings, right? Food for thought. Well, maybe that happened, maybe it didn't. We're still kind of in the mystery phase of this case. It could go one way or the other. Stay tuned. There's likely to be more breaking news in this case. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.